How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern. And, what do you guys want to talk about today? Huh? May as well steal Cody's line. Well, we got a lot to get into today, don't we? I have not been on this show since Thursday. And for those of you that are regular listeners to this show, you know how this works every single time. If I have to go somewhere, it's all hitting the fan. And in fact, that happened. And so now here we are. And the life that we lived on Thursday is no longer the life that we live. It's gone. And we are all living a new life right now with what will soon be a new WWE and UFC being folded into one entity with Endeavor, and Vince McMahon is back. And on Thursday, he was a little bit back, but he wasn't all the way back. He had his, I don't want to say what I was about to say, but he was dipping in, but now he's back. And I'm talking, he's all the way back. And boy, was it obvious watching that Raw show last night. Oh, my God. Oh, Lord. But anyway, we got to talk about that here today. And, of course, we've got AW Dynamite on Wednesday. We have Charlotte apparently taking another leave of absence. An update on Jay White and what I've heard about that situation. Stand and Deliver Fallout tonight, NXT. And, boy, I got stuff to say about NXT as well. And, of course, the world-famous Raw Report will be with us here today. And I'll kick it off after the break, everybody. Wrestling Observer Live.
And we've only been tagging 2, I guess, right? November 2020 was our first
a little over 2 years.
A little over 2 years, but during quarantine, everyone's sitting at home. We're kind of trying to figure out what's next. When things reopen, when shows start back up again, what are we going to do? And we decided, why not do things on our own terms? That's the one thing people are going to have to learn about the Hex is we do things when we want and how we want to do them. And so we one day just started spitballing stuff back and forth. We were able to use social media, during 2020 to start getting these opportunities and people being like, oh, what's going on? It's crazy because we did it all on our own. I think that we did this without a contract in any company. We did this, reaching out to, and that's another thing that's really cool too, is that we can pull from each other's contacts. AK is going to reach out to this company in England. All right, cool. I'm going to reach out to this one in Spain. Like, we're just going to keep working together. And that's like that's the craziest thing, is that we did this completely on our own, just betting on ourselves and being like, we're going to go over to the UK. We're going to do all these fucking amazing matches there. We're going to come back and kill it here in the US. And we're just going to keep going. And to me, that is like, what is the craziest to me? Like, I don't care how high I've gotten by myself, whatever. Like, to me, doing it as a team, and there are so many freaking amazing tag teams in the world, period. But to be in the top 10 and being the only women in the top 10
in the US,
not gonna lie, in the US, not gonna lie, like, felt really fucking good.
Well, a lot of people do ask us why we're called the Hex. And while James Mitchell may be using us to put a hex on the death dolls, we do also like to clarify, we're not witches. There are a lot of witches in wrestling right now, and we're not trying to be witches. We're called the Hex because we will ruin your whole life. I want to touch on something you actually mentioned earlier, Denise, about filling a void, because that is something we talked about in 2020. I feel like throughout our careers, we have always looked for what is missing in wrestling right now, because you can't just be like everyone else. We've always tried to, of course, play to our strengths and find things that are missing in wrestling. And I feel like in 2020, we really said to each other at one point, there are not really many women tag teams on the indies that are established. I think at the time it was like Sea Stars, and that might have been about it, because there wasn't a lot of indie tag teams in the US of females. And that was a huge part of why we're like, we should do this. We are actually friends. We actually want to tag together. All the tag teams we're seeing, some on TV too, but also especially on the indies, we're throwing together people. I think that's something that also draws people to us, is that they can feel that we want to be here and that we're actually having fun together. That's something people say to us when they see us in the ring is, you look like you're actually having fun out there. And we're like, that's because we are.
Back on the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Hey, I want to mention, just want to thank all of the listeners I want to thank all the people that I saw down in Los Angeles. I want to thank all the moderators working on this website, all of the hosts, including you, Mike, believe it or not.
Yeah. Huh.
I want to thank all the people that produce this show and edit it together and all that stuff. Will you shut up for a second? I want to thank all of those people that make all of this possible. And I want you to know that despite what might be going on now with WWE, the same Wrestling Observer, F4W Online that you love, I can assure you is not going anywhere. We will be here week in and week out, event after event, because, like it says at the beginning of this program, how's it going, everybody? It's Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. And on Memorial Day weekend, Dave Meltzer and I will be doing a live Q&A that you don't want to miss. It'll be taking place at our annual convention. You can go to f4wonline.com right now. You can go to my Twitter, at Bryan Alvarez, where somehow I am still verified. I don't know how. And you can get all the information about the special live Q&A that Dave and I will be doing over Double or Nothing weekend. Don't miss it, everybody. It's going to be a lot of fun. We always have a good time. We'll answer all your questions. There's like a thing, you know, we sign stuff or whatever. And there's a sweet party that you can go to with Dave and I and everybody else. There's a Texas Day Brazil dinner with everybody. There's all sorts of stuff. So head to f4wonline.com for more information on all of that. And join us over this lovely Memorial Day weekend. Now, with that out of the way, now that I've thanked you all, put you all over, now you're going to get it.
Can I have my release
No.
now? I've been waiting for 17 years.
I try to tell everybody, and nobody ever wants to listen to me. Okay? I had to hear for weeks and weeks and weeks that it's exactly the same as it used to be. It's not any better. It's the same Raw. And I told you, you're wrong. It's so much better now. And I said, you know what? The day's going to come where this bloke, this Vince McMahon bloke, this fiend, returns to the fold, and he takes over again, and then you're going to see it. And, well, here we are. Last night's Raw. Dude, it's right back to where it was before. You know what this is like? You know what this is like?
What's that?
This is an old, dated reference, okay? But when I was a kid, I used to go
Everything
over
was in black and white.
to Granny's house, and I would spend the night at her house every Friday night. The same Granny that to this day, including today, at 93 years old, will be on the Bryan and Vinny show for subscribers at WrestlingObserver.com tonight. I used to spend the night at her house, and before, like I would sleep on this little couch. She made a bed on the couch, and as I was going to sleep, you know what I'd always hear as I was drifting off to sleep?
What's that?
I would hear the opening theme to the show Dallas, a very, very famous soap opera from the 1980s. And one of the most famous, there were a couple of famous, I don't know anything about the show really, but I know there were two very famous things about Dallas. One is J.R. Ewing got shot. That was pretty famous. And the other one was at the end of one season, one of the characters, I don't even know who it was, she like went in or whatever, and the shower opened and out steps, is it, what's the guy's name?
Patrick Duffy. He was Bobby on the show.
Duffy.
Yes.
Bobby Ewing, okay?
Yes.
And he steps out of the shower, and that was a cliffhanger because he was dead. And someone was like, what? He's dead. How's Bobby Ewing getting out of this shower? Well, what happened was, the next season, they explained that the entire season that you had watched previously, that ended with Patrick whatever getting out of the shower, whatever his name was, Bobby Ewing.
Patrick Duffy. You don't remember him from Step
Anyway,
by Step
but the
with
point
Suzanne
is,
Summers?
the point is, Mike,
Nicole,
he got out of the shower and they told you that the entire season that you had just watched had been a dream.
A dream, yes. Yeah.
You ever heard the term jump the shark? Okay. Well, man, I was at WrestleMania. It was like the end of night 1. And dude, this show was so awesome. And granted, I was there live. I was like 5 rows back from the ring at the time of my life. It was so awesome. Then I went to night 2, and for like 3 hours, it was so awesome. And then we had the main event with Cody and Roman Reigns, and in just the most nothing happening finish, Solo Sikoa thumbs Cody in the neck, Roman Reigns spears him, Cody's pinned middle of the ring. And dude, the second they rang that bell, like people were getting out of that place. You never seen people get out of that building so fast. And the night before they hadn't. When Sammy and Kevin won, man, show's over. They stayed for like, I don't even know how long. They were singing and dancing and having the time of their lives. Man, Cody got pinned. They were out of there. They're like, we're done. We're out of here. And they left. And I'm just standing in line, and I just thought, you know what, man? He just stepped out of the shower, dude. He just stepped out of the shower. And that's what happened. I left that building, and I thought, you know what? This was like a short-lived, glorious period in WWE that is now over. And then, sure enough, I went home, and I watched that Raw show, and it was like the last 8 months, it was nothing but a dream. We were right back to where we were, where every Tuesday I would come on the show to do the Raw report, and I would talk about all of this stupid stuff that happened and all these segments that didn't make any sense. And, you know, the guy running out and giving 3 new run sheets in 45 minutes at the beginning of the show. And it was just like, we're back, dude. We're right back where we were. And all I want to say, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I told you so, even though I have. But with all my heart, I hope that you all enjoyed the last 8 months, because it's over, okay? I'm sorry, but it is. I'm not saying there's never going to be any good things in WWE or good matches or, you know, storylines that you care about, but, like, we had a period that is gone. And I can't say it'll never come back because, you know, Vince ain't going to live forever. I mean, all you listening to this, if you wait long enough, if you live long enough, you know, we might have something resembling this coming back, but, you know, for the time being, it's done. So that's kind of depressing. I really enjoyed the last 8 months. I really did.
I know.
God.
You did.
It was so nice to be able to, like, hey, here's a Raw preview for today. Oh, it's actually all going to happen. And wow, you know, we got this long-term storyline, and there's new stuff added to it every week, and it's not getting changed constantly. And they're not, I mean, whatever. Who cares?
Are you worried about NXT going back to something
you know, that's what else.
Or,
you know, that's the other thing I'm going to
3.0?
say. You know, people didn't like NXT 2.0, and whatever. You know, if you watched it, you know that one was way better too. But here's the thing now with NXT. The NXT that you were watching, it was of value to watch, okay? Because if they called up anybody, if they called up Braun Breaker, he was going to go to Braun Breaker as Braun. He was going to go to the main roster as Braun Breaker. If they called up Legado del Fantasma, which they did as soon as Vince was gone, they came up as Legado del Fantasma, the whole group, okay? Now, what's the point? What's the point? Like, who are you going to call? What are you going to do with anybody that you call up? Nothing. You're not going to do anything with them. Like, all of these people that might have had a chance with Vince gone, they ain't going to have a chance now. It's like you're watching a lame duck show where they're going to book all of this stuff, and there might be people that you really like and storylines you really like, and then, like, they're going to go to that main roster and whatever. They're going to get a new name. They'll get a new gimmick. They'll get 3 weeks, and then they're out of here. I've seen it before. We've all seen it. What's the point of watching the show anymore? Back in a moment, Observer Live.
I'm going to ask you guys each a question about the other person, and then you just let me know if the other person is wrong or not. And we're going to start off with Marty here. So here we go. Question number 1. What is Allison's favorite food?
what Allison could eat all the time, and necessarily her favorite food, but what she could eat all the time is sushi.
Is she right?
Correct.
Wee, ding, ding, ding. All right. What is Allison's favorite genre of music?
Ooh, that one's really hard because Allison listens to a lot of different things, a lot of things that you wouldn't expect her to listen to. But if I had to pick one, like if what's probably playing in her house now, I want to say like your mom's country music.
Oh, okay. Is she right?
I would say yes. My playlists are like reggaeton and 90s country.
And that was gonna be my other one.
90s.
Spice Girls.
That's not
It's
what
like
I was
there's
expecting, by the way. I was
Yeah.
not expecting that whatsoever. All right. Question number 3. What is Allison's favorite item of clothing?
Her favorite. Oh, is it her favorite or what I know she likes to wear? And what if she wasn't
It can be
on
like a
camera right now?
specific
she'd be
item.
wearing?
Yeah.
If she wasn't on camera right now, she would have her red robe on.
I'm a robe guy. Yeah, I'm a robe guy at home for sure.
Question number 4. Is Allison an early bird or a night owl?
I will literally get text messages from Allison at 2 or 3 in the morning. Allison is a night owl.
Okay. And last question. This one's more on like whatever you think, Marty. What is one word to describe Allison?
One word. I think it's one that we both have used to describe each other. Loyal.
Allison, your turn. Question number 1. What is Marty's favorite social media app?
Well, you know what it
Ooh.
isn't.
I know it's not Twitter for sure. I guess by default it would be Instagram.
That's the only one I really use. Yeah.
Okay. Question number 2. What is Marty's favorite movie?
Ooh.
Marty's favorite movie. Oh,
Does Marty watch movies?
I know. I'm like, Marty doesn't really watch movies.
My favorite horror movie.
Your favorite horror movie is The Orphan.
Okay, there we go. Good one. Question number 3. What is Marty's favorite color?
Purple. Easy.
Alrighty.
I'm trying to listen to the camera. I'm literally wearing purple eyeshadow. Yes.
Oh yeah, I see it. Question number 4. Does Marty prefer going out or staying in?
That's hard to say because I feel like both of us it can change on a whim. Marty, I will say Marty is definitely more extroverted than I am. So I'm just going to say going out, but I also know she loves staying in. So I don't know. There's not really a good answer to that one.
Yeah, that's a hard one. Yeah, literally everything AK just said.
All right. And last question, same question is, what's the one word you would use to describe Marty?
Oh, there's so many. There's so many going through my head right now. Resilient.
Oh, that's a strong word.
You know
I
what's
love that.
freaking insane? I swear to you, that is what I was going to say for yours.
I believe you.
I wish we could have been like writing this down, like holding it up because I
Or said it at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, what else do we got here? I should mention the passing of Bushwhacker Butch, because well, it's not that long ago, I believe, that the sheep herders, I'm pretty sure the sheep herders were inducted into the Hall of Awesome, because Vinny and I went back and we started watching a lot of those old NWA Crockett shows, and this wasn't even the best of the sheep herders. But man, they were still awesome. And not only were they awesome, but man, that Butch could cut a promo. Like, you guys remember the wacky, like, I think most people remember the Bushwhackers, and it was all wacky and everything like that. But, you know, when I was a kid, I mentioned this yesterday with Observer Radio with Dave. When I was a kid, I'd always heard, man, you watch these Bushwhackers, dude, you should have seen them when they were the sheep herders. And you just hear that. And then, you know, years later when all that stuff appeared on the WWE Network, we went back and watched the sheep herders. And my God, was everybody right. And, man, that Butch could cut a promo, like a heel, bad dude promo. And it's a weird comparison, but it was the first thing I thought about. When it was time for a sheep herders match, like a sheep herder squash, it was exactly like the Blackpool Combat Club when they faced Dalton Castle and the boys last week. It's like they just came out and ran roughshod, and they slaughtered dudes. And then, of course, later they go to WWF, and they're bushwhackers. And they do a silly walk, and they lick each other's face. And I just watched the Bushwhackers a week ago when we were doing the Retro Raw show. This would be 1994. And I can't even remember where they were, but they're out licking fans. Like, they just were walking through the crowd, and they grab this young lady, and they start just licking her face. And, bro, the look on her face when she just started getting licked by this bushwhacker. And then, later, The I can't remember which one it was, but they found a cat. I realize that Mike's going to make some lewd joke, but forget the lewd joke. They started actually licking a shoot cat, okay? Dude, I got a cat. Don't, okay? But they're like licking this cat, and they're licking these people, and I'm just like, God, what a different time and place in the history of the universe that sure was. Can you imagine? God. But yeah, very sad to hear about the passing.
Very. This is back when WWF used to be the portal that Saray would walk through, because I grew up with the Sheepherders, and it was May 25th, 1986 on UWF TV. It was the Sheepherders.
Sorry to interrupt. It was they were at the White House Easter egg hunt.
That's right. It wasn't DC.
It was the Bushwhackers, Doink and Dink at the White House, and like if you watched WrestleMania, they had the fake that was his name.
Clinton.
They had the fake Bill Clinton there. But this, like, it was a shoot Bill Clinton. It was a real guy. And the actual Hillary, they're both there. And the Bushwhackers and Doink and Dink are at the White House. And it was the cat's name? Socks. It was the actual White House cat that they're licking. Can you imagine? In the Clinton White House. God.
Yes.
Don't lick anything. Anyway.
Maybe, but yeah, I mean, the Sheepherders, I remember them, like, they, when I was real little, on, like, Southwest TV would come on, and it was them against, like, Ricky Morton and Ken Lucas, and they're just, whoa, and they did all of that stuff while they were bad guys. It just, they looked like they were maniacs doing it, and then they go through that portal into the WWF, and it was an entirely new team. I knew them from Shedding Blood, like I was saying. That barbed wire cage match on UWF TV, it was Terry Taylor and the Fantastics against the Sheepherders and Jack Victory at that time. Johnny Ace and Rip Morgan, they would all become flag bearers, but he was their flag bearer at the time. And they had Mad Maxine out there, this very tall women's wrestler who was around for a while with a huge mohawk. I mean, they looked like they were nuts. They were insane. And you hear the stories from them outside of the ring, and they were kind of insane, almost all in a good way. I've never heard any stories negative about them outside of the ring, but they always have wacky, wild stories. So they were a great example, too, of when it was all over, and they gave their bodies for the wrestling business like you would not believe. I mean, one of the reasons they walk like that was they had to, and they gave their bodies. And when they went into the WWF, I mean, I don't know. There's no way they could have foreseen the success that they would have, and there's no way the WWF really could have seen the success and the staying power they had as these big, goofy baby faces that really, I don't know. I'd really have to think about it. But since George the Animal Steele, I mean, they were kind of the spiritual successor for George the Animal Steele, coming after that and being that character. 37 bloody countries, mate. 37 countries we've been champions in. Whoa, a.
Well, I hate to say this because the man passed away, but we would be remiss if we did not mention that the Bushwhackers were also involved in, I think, the worst match in the history of professional wrestling. And granted, this was in the 90s, and so there's a very good chance there have been worse matches since then. But there was a show called The Heroes of Wrestling.
Oh, God.
And it was the Bushwhackers against Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik. I've never given a match a lower star rating in my life. And it's not even like, the lowest I usually give it would be -5 stars, and this was like -6. I gave this more stars than there are stars in the known universe. Dave gave it -460, whatever absolute zero is. I mean, it was so unbelievably, impossibly horrible that God bless him. I mean, he had a 5-star match and a -infinity star match in one career.
Now, that's a Hall of Famer.
It's a Hall of Awesomer, I'll tell you that much.
Damn right. And you know what? Nobody really remembers that because of Jake Roberts just completely casting a shadow over all of it, if that tells you. And those were two of the highlights of that show.
All right, got to talk about some other WWE stuff, unfortunately. So Charlotte is now taking yet another leave of absence. She'd been on a long leave of absence, returned, and now is going on another leave of absence. The office is terrified because you've got two companies that one is real, one is fake, but they largely do the exact same thing. And so there's a lot of redundancy. And, Endeavor is not buying this thing to lose money. So, Vince yesterday actually said that everything will be business as usual. And it's like a thing. When a guy tells you right after a sale that it will be business as usual, you're doomed. So likely a lot of office cuts coming. And, there are a lot of people.
Everybody thought flywheel was a word. Let's remember redundancy cuts. You might hear a lot about that.
There were a lot of people that were not working for WWE. And then Vince was ousted. And by the way, people keep going, he wasn't ousted, he stepped down. He was ousted, okay? And they got hired. And now, well, I don't know what to say, but they're very worried. There are a lot of rumors of people asking for their releases. I can't confirm any of them. And, I said this before, and I will say it again, even though I sound like I'm without hope. It is very important to remember that nothing is forever. And if you recall, remember when Vince was ousted and Triple H took over, and all of a sudden you started hearing about all these guys in AEW that wanted to go back, and it was like a thing. Well, they didn't go back. And can you imagine if they'd gone back and now he's back? What we'd be dealing with right now? So, I think there are people that may have wanted to go that don't want to go anymore. And there are definitely people that want out. But again, nothing is forever. So we'll see what happens. I mean, the story is that Vince will remain in this position once everything happens. But he's lost a tremendous amount of power, which is the funny thing about this sale. He gave up power. He used to have 10 times with his shares in his stock shares. He had 10 times voting power. Now he has 1 time. He's just like everybody else. And he's lost his complete control over everything. And the stock went down, so he actually lost money. So, everybody yesterday was asking, why in God's name did he do this? He gave up power and lost money? Like, why? Well, because I'm sure he believes that in the long game, well, he's making this much money now, but in 7-8 years, they're going to double, triple, quadruple, whatever, much like Endeavor did with UFC. I'm sure he's thinking the same thing's going to happen. So, yeah, he lost out early, but I think he figures that he's going to make it all up later on down the road. We shall see.
This isn't about money. It is about money to a point, but it's not all about money. Did you see the CNBC interview? Did you see Ari Emanuel jump in at the end of it, talking about the IP and how Vince has got the right to his story, which is amazing, by the way, just for any wrestler out there who was not able to use their name after they left again. But his story, his IP, all this stuff. He's in a nice little cocoon. This is a guy who just settled a rape charge that he said he would never settle. We know what was in those NDAs now. We know all of the things that he's been accused of, all the pictures that have been taken at tanning booths, all of this stuff around him where people are mortified about the fact he's back from that point of view. Well, he's in a place with Ari Emanuel with a 20-year relationship that he's in a nice little cocoon. He'll make his money. He'll control all the rights to everything. And he learned nothing except for he can still be Vince McMahon.
Back in a moment, Observer Live.
And it was also funny because ROH, when I was younger, was like shows I would go to and joke like, oh, if I wanted to choose like anywhere to be, I would want to be here. And it's crazy to think about because there was such like a vibe to ROH, and I feel like it's has that vibe again, and it's just even bigger than what it was before. And I'm just so grateful that I was able to be a part of it. And I also messed with a bunch of like the guys who've been on ROH for a minute. And I posted the picture of me like super young, hanging out with like Maria Kanellis in the Kingdom when I was like just a baby. And I was like, yeah, I used to go to shows and watch you guys, and now you have to work with me.
Oh my God, what did they say? What was their reaction to that?
Everybody was like, "You make me feel old." And I even joked with Bryce, the ref. He was like, "Yeah, I was looking at your social media and I saw the post and I was like, oh my God, I ref those shows. She's a child." And I was like, I had to grow up. I'm sorry. I'm still so young, and nobody, like, they're like, we love it, but you just make us feel old sometimes. You can't do this to us. I truly think that the women's community is super, super like protective and caring about one another, and truly want to see people grow. And it's funny because everybody wants to say, oh, we're competing for a spot. There's only a certain number of spots on shows. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I get that, but we don't get better without each other. And that's the truth in wrestling. We need each other. You can't have a match by yourself. You need an opponent.
Exactly. So for you, who are some of the women that you feel you've like really connected with, that you either helped you out in your journey, that you just really kind of bonded with, or that you take inspiration from?
Definitely Jessica Havoc. She's an amazing woman, has helped me very early on my career, and even now, Ruby Soho, she's an amazing person, and if I message her, she'll answer any of my questions. No matter how goofy or crazy it is, she'll take the time and be like, yeah, I can help Billy out. I'm one of those people, I'm like, hey, what are you doing? I have this really weird question about wrestling, and it will be like completely random topic that we have never talked about before, and then we'll go into like a sidebar conversation when I'm like, "Hey, you, when's the next time I see you? Do you want to see this kid do a 450 off the AC unit?" She's like, "What are you talking about?"
Well, it is time for the world famous Raw Report. What a show. Trying to do a gigantic rating. And then all the nerds on the internet go, see, everything's great. Well, let's see. It's the Raw after WrestleMania. The first hour had no commercials, which always is a monster number. And they teased a main event of Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa against Cody Rhodes and Brock Lesnar, which, by the way, they didn't deliver. It opened with Hunter coming down to the ring to do the same speech that I gave at the beginning of this show. It sounded like he was saying goodbye. Then he introduces Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns comes out, gets booed mightily. Out comes Cody. Does get cheered. So, a lot of people were like, he's dead in the water. Not yet. Not yet. He was cheered a lot when he came out. He was very over. Of course, he was killed again at the end of the show, so we'll see what happens going forward. But he came out and he said today was turning out a lot more differently than he and others anticipated. He thought he would be standing there as the champion. And he says, listen, you beat me. You were the better competitor, which was odd because then he said, many times you've won matches and just skated by, narrowly beat people. But that wasn't the case last night. Last night, I had you. I knew what I wanted to talk about. It boils down to one word. Everyone chants rematch. He says, that's why I want a rematch. So Paul says when. Cody says tonight. Paul says, nope, not tonight. Not Puerto Rico, not SummerSlam, not Survivor Series, not Royal Rumble, not next year's Mania. No. So Cody says, well, you know what? After everything I went through my entire career to get to last night and this happened to me, I know you don't want to do this rematch. I know you don't want to give the people what they want. But let's do something here tonight. Let's do a tag match, which people booed, by the way. They didn't want a tag match. They wanted a title match. And they chanted Roman scared, and so Roman accepted. But there were two stipulations. The person had to have worked WrestleMania, and the person, if they wrestled against Roman tonight could never get a shot at Roman's title as long as Roman was champion. And they were like, who are you going to get now? So believe it or not, we went back to the past, and Brock Lesnar had done a match with Roman. And the stip was if Brock didn't win, he could never get another title shot against Roman. And so he came out. He had nothing to lose. And man, he's all happy, and he's friendly, and he's hugging the guy, and he's shaking his hand, and he's holding his arm up. Anybody watching live, did you not figure this out early? Then we had Omos and Elias. Omos killed him. It was whatever. It's like 10 seconds. The Usos go to meet with Roman. Paul says, well, Roman just stepped outside with Solo. They're talking strategy. But you know what? Jet's fired up. Head out there. Get eaten. As in eating, not eaten, as Dave thought last night.
There was seafood on there.
And they reluctantly said okay and bailed. And that was the only time that we saw the Usos here on this program. We had highlights of the Hall of Fame. We had Kathy Kelly interviewing Bad Bunny. How excited are you, she says. I am very excited, he responds. Finally, WWE is coming back to Puerto Rico. But now I will just enjoy Raw like a fan. A very wealthy fan here tonight. Then Ray comes out for a promo. He's very excited to go to this Hall of Fame. Wants to thank the fans. Bunny, I want to thank you as well, he says. Austin Theory comes out. He says, we both deserve a little respect. We're the only two who did what we said we were going to do at WrestleMania. Well, that's not true. Did you do the opener Saturday and go home? What happened here? Says Ray beat his son. I beat the greatest of all time. He says, John Cena said the fans were going to eat me alive tonight, but they're not. And I thought, that's not a good thing, actually. Like, you should be getting way more heat than you're getting right now. You're just out there. They were just whatever. And then he wants a match against Ray. And Ray says, all right, let's do it. So, it is now 55 minutes into the first hour. There has been zero wrestling in 55 minutes. The referee goes, ring the bell. The match goes 1 minute, and they go to commercial.
Good use of a commercial-free first hour.
Oh, and actually, you know what? There was a match. There was that Omos match that went 1 minute. Okay.
1 minute.
So anyway, there had been 1 minute in 55 minutes. Now they do 1 minute and go to commercial. So in the first hour of Raw, there were 2 minutes of professional wrestling. So they come back, and Dominic comes down to the ring with Priest. He distracts Ray. Ray gets hit with the A-Town down and pinned. So then Dominic and Priest are beating up Ray. Dominic goes to ringside, starts yelling at Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny's trying to tell him, tranquilo, calm down. So Dom tries to punch this musical artist. The artist just decks him. Priest then pulls Bunny over the barricade. He gets shoved. Bad Bunny decks Dom again. This is the follow-up for Dom beating Rey Mysterio at WrestleMania. Actually, no, that didn't happen. Ray beat him. But anyway, he gets beaten up again by the musical artist. And then Priest ends up grabbing Bunny and he chokeslams him through the table. And he didn't go halfway. He chokeslammed this bloke through that table. They claim that Bad Bunny had a separated shoulder. So it appears we're getting some tag match in Puerto Rico. So then Pierce meets with Priest. There's no punishment. Priest just goes, this guy's my buddy. He's my friend. And if he hadn't been, you'd have a real reason to be angry. With friends like that, as they say. Then out come Kevin and Sammy. And Sammy thanks the fans. Kevin says, I got an idea for a celebration. I want to fight. And they don't call out the Street Profits. They just say, does anybody want to come out? It's like, why didn't they call out the actual winners of that four-way? That would have been way better.
Because they're on a high right now. They're not thinking about that. We won the titles. We just put one on the bloodline. Man, let's go. Anybody wants to fight, let's go.
So the Street Profits come down to the ring. And even though they won the four-way, they have a non-title match with Kevin and Sammy. And this had stunningly little heat until the last couple of minutes when Sammy made a comeback. And then Montez hits a big dive to the outside, comes back in, gets it with a stunner, gets kicked in the corner, pinned. So, like, I don't know, whatever.
Are you worried for Dawkins and Ford?
Well, I mean, it's just like, why did you do a 4-way showcase match at WrestleMania? Put the Street Profits over in that match. And then the big follow-up is they get a non-title match, and they're just beaten. So let me guess. Vince is back. This is going to lead to a title match, right?
Of course.
You beat the Street Profits. Now they get a title match. Okay, I got
remember how this works. He wasn't gone that long. You know.
Yeah, I've tried to forget it. So then we had the weirdest frickin' segment I ever seen. So Kathy interviews old Seth. She asks about Logan Paul. He just laughs. Ha ha! He does a stupid laugh. Then he goes, you know, the party isn't over. It's not back here. It's out there. Hit my music. So they hit his music. The fans starting to sing or whatever. He goes out on the ramp. They go to commercial. I hate the song anyway, so whatever. So then they come back from commercial. Seth is still there. They're singing his song. And then he leaves. And he's never seen again. What? Okay, whatever.
Dude, you gotta wait. The story's got to play out here.
Then Lashley does a promo. How do you feel about winning the Andre the Giant Battle Royal? He won this prestigious Andre the Giant Battle Royal, which, by the way, ended up being a really good match. But his answer is, God, man, I don't even get a match in Mania. He's angry. So then, you know, Bronson Reed shows up, and he wants to fight Lashley, but not tonight. Someday, he says. So he leaves, and then up walks Ali, and he says, you never should take no for an answer. So Lashley says, you tell me I should just grab somebody, drag them to the ring, and beat their ass? And Ali says, yes. So Lashley grabbed him, dragged him to the ring, beat his ass. That was the segment.
Man of his word.
Hurt locked him.
Liked it.
I think we were at about 11 minutes of wrestling in a 2-hour show at this point. Roman meets with Solo and Paul, and he says, did you know that Brock was here tonight? And Paul goes, no. Usually that guy leaves after WrestleMania. He's gone for 6 to 9 months. He leaves everybody high and dry. A life, he says, that you saved me from, my tribal chief. And Roman says, well, how did this happen? And Paul says, well, you know, he won at Mania, and he has nothing to lose because he can't get a shot at you again, so that's why he's here. Roman says, well, I've smashed this guy before. I'm going to smash him again. I'm going to smash Cody. Then Solo, I'm going to tag you in. We'll see who's ready now. Bianca came out for a promo. Thanked the fans. Tried to put over Asuka. Out comes Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley says, you know, you're calling yourself the EST. You're really just the luckiest woman in wrestling. You're lucky I chose Charlotte instead of you. But one of these days, we'll get back to this. And I'll beat you like I beat Charlotte. Bianca says, well, you made that decision for a reason. You didn't want to face me. But you should stand on your own here. But I am all about getting in the ring with the best. One of these days, when you're ready, we will see which one of us is the best. Unify these titles.
Please.
Get it done. We don't need 2 women's. We don't have 2 men's titles. We don't have 2 sets of tag titles. We don't need 2 sets of women's titles. Unify them. Everyone's going back and forth. We don't even have a brand split right now. Liv and Raquel faced a team consisting of 1 woman who could never get called up from developmental and 1 woman who had been fired. But immediately after Vince left, 1 got called up and 1 got rehired. Io and Dakota Kai. And they were beaten handily by Liv Morgan and Raquel. Because it's just the way things go. You know what I'm saying? How come they don't get a title shot or a match with the champions? I don't know. I guess they'll get it next week is what they said. Miz came out for a promo. He doesn't want any more surprises. The surprise is the return of Matt Riddle. He beats up Miz, hits him with Bro Derek, and leaves. That was the one Like, remember when people used to get called up, debut, etc.? Matt Riddle returned. He's been gone since December. That was the big surprise for the Raw after WrestleMania. Becky, Trish, and Lita challenge Damage Control for the titles next week. We'll also get Miz versus Riddle. And then the main event. Roman and Solo come down to the ring. They hit Cody's music. They hit Brock's music. They didn't want you to think that they were not going to do a match, and so 15 minutes before the top of the hour, they start the entrances. But the entrances are like 5 minutes. Then they do the longest. I mean, my God, the amount of time they spent doing the ring introductions. And finally, Cody's all ready to go. Brock jumps him from behind. F5s him. Roman Reigns and Solo act shocked. They just leave. And then, as God is my witness, for 10 straight solid minutes, Brock Lesnar beat him and 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 beat him, and he beat him, and he beat him, and he beat him, and he continued to beat him, and he 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 beat him, and beat him.
You're clear.
So let's get right into it. Now, I know you said you're not a fan of school, but what is your favorite subject in school?
So definitely this year I take Psychology 101, and it's been my favorite class this year. We're on like a serial killer unit right now, and I'm having like a great time. It's actually something I'm super interested in.
Okay, question number two. Favorite place to hang out when you're not wrestling?
My best friend's house. She has like a trampoline and a pool in her backyard, and I've been friends with her since middle school. So whenever I get to see her over the weekends, and like whenever I'm not all over the place, I love just going over to her house and hanging out.
Question number three. A match or opponent you've learned most from?
Ooh, ah, that's hard. I will say, like, very early on in my career, the person I probably learned most from was Kylie Ray. I had a match with her when I was a little over a year in, and she honestly helped me out so much so early on in my career. So I'm going to give it to her.
Question number four. What's something aside from wrestling that you're a big fan of? And I guess we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I guess if there's anything else.
I'm a big video game person, and I mostly focus on like first shooter games. So I love Call of Duty. I like Splitgate. I like Overwatch. So that's more like my second love. Whenever I'm not wrestling, I can play video games and have fun. I joke that like when I'm not wrestling, it helps me get like my violent tendencies out. I was like definitely becoming a wrestler, and whenever you have a weekend off and you're like, "Oh my god, I have all this pent up like energy. What's going on? I feel frustrated." And my mom jokes like I get all grumpy when I don't get to wrestle. She was like, "You need to get something out where it's like it builds up in you," and I don't know what it is.
Question number five. Favorite way to spend your time traveling?
Ooh, honestly, I love just hopping on a plane and just falling asleep. If I could sleep on the plane like every single time, I would be a happy soul. But there's like sometimes I'll get squished right in the middle and I'm like, this is the worst. I can't do anything here. Rough sometimes in the car too. I will say like I joke that the traveling beats up my body more than the wrestling sometimes because like trying to sleep in the car and I will wake up and my neck's just sore. I'm like, what happened?
He beat him, and he beat him, and he beat him, and he beat him. And finally, he stops beating him so that he can walk up the ramp. And he starts walking up the ramp, and he stops. And Cody's dead. He's been beaten. He's laying on the steel steps because he was beaten so badly in F5 down to the steps. And Brock stops and he looks down. All these people are trying to help old Cody. And Brock turns. He starts walking down the ramp. Corey's like, everybody get out of the way! So these idiots in the ring get out of the way. And Brock grabs this guy, and guess what happens? He beat him, and 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 he beat him. And then he grabbed a chair, and he started beating him. He's beating him with this chair, and he beat him, 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 and he beat him. And then he beat him, and he beat him, and he pummeled him, and he smashed him, and he beat him, and he beat him, and he beat him. And beat him, 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 and beat him,